this phone better than the iPhone. I'm just going to say that. I like this phone better than the iPhone in a lot of different ways. I've been using the S22 Ultra now for almost 3 weeks. The narrative around the Galaxy S22 Ultra has been a little strange. On one hand, there are a bunch of folks that are saying, well, it's not a Galaxy Note, so I don't really care about it. And then on the other hand, there are folks that are saying, well, it's just everything that a Note is, except for them calling it the Note. To be sure, there are an awful lot of opinions about this phone, but opinions are like toenails. We all have them most of the time. And to be sure, there are a lot of opinions about this phone. But for me, there's only one opinion that matters, and that's mine. And hopefully, my opinion after 2 weeks of using this phone can help you if you're still on the fence thinking about whether or not this is the right phone for you. First, let's just get that elephant in the room out of the way. Is this a Galaxy Note phone? In a word, yes. It has all the trappings of the Note, and other than being lumped into the S line of phones, it is the successor to the Galaxy Note 20. I could say that's as simple as pointing out the rectangular, sharper corners, the Note-like shape. It has the S Pen, but it's more than that. What made the Note attractive to people was its everything in the kitchen sink approach to building a smartphone. And that's definitely in effect here. In fact, it's better here than it has been in the past. Because in the past, Samsung would always kind of fall in love with some feature or another that they jam into the phone, and it would be like they're hey, look at this cool thing that we can do now, whether it's scrolling with your eyes or AR doodling or anything like that, which I guess you can still AR doodle, although no one does. People just, maybe they tried those things out once or twice and then forgot that they were in the phone altogether and never messed with it again. The phone is both stripped down from those things and also filled to the brim with every good idea that Samsung has really ever had when it comes to smartphones. It's also missing some stuff that customers love, but those things have been removed from just about every phone out there. So can we hold that against the S22 Ultra at this point? I mean, gone is the SD card slot, no expandable storage. So too have we lost the IR blaster, which people are still talking about. Samsung Pay has been stripped of some features. And of course, we can't talk about lost features without mentioning the headphone jack. Yeah, okay. Part of me would have loved for Samsung just to make one more Note that had all the stuff that we ever loved about phones in general, and still have all the cool stuff that the phone has, like DeX and even Bixby. Samsung rarely mentions Bixby anymore, but actually, Bixby has become a lot more useful than I ever thought possible. Samsung pushed Bixby on us for years, even giving it its own dedicated button at one point, but finally they gave it the ghost, and I haven't heard the word Bixby out of Samsung for years, but it's still there. And it's actually pretty cool, too. If you take the time to learn what you can do and get out of Bixby, you can dive deep into menus just with Bixby commands. In a lot of ways, Bixby has morphed into something like what Apple shortcuts are, which are also really cool and powerful, but take tons of time to master. And I think that's really for the power user who wants to get deep into that. But it's there, more powerful than ever, and the same can be said of the S Pen. Oh yes, the S Pen. When the Note was introduced, the S Pen was the marquee feature of the phone, an active stylus slotted into the butthole of the phone that could be summoned from the phone's anus, and you could write notes and things like that. The S Pen was kind of limited when it was first introduced, but in recent years, the S Pen has been improved upon to the extent that you could almost run the whole phone from the S Pen. You can use it as a remote shutter for the camera. You can select part of the screen to take a screenshot instead of taking the whole screen as a screenshot and then editing it down with Smart Select. There are 13 different functions you can perform with the S Pen by selecting one of them from the pop-up menu that launches every time you pull the pen out. You can magnify the text, you can translate the text, you can write on the screen, you can take a note, and a ton of other stuff. You can do that AR doodle thing that I mentioned before. You can Smart Select, as I mentioned before, and when you pull this thing out of its orifice, when the phone is locked, you automatically get this sort of quick note thing. So you can just be like, oh, yes, I need to... Aha! And that doesn't even take into account that it's actually pretty satisfying to use the S Pen to browse the phone, especially for like stubby-fingered people like myself. So I want you to know, people, that the S Pen is highly worth your time if you're using this phone. But I can hear you now. Jason, that's all fine and dandy, but how does this thing stand up as a phone? You've told us about the pen. How does it stand up as a phone? Well, okay. It's the best phone Samsung has to offer, maybe has ever offered. And I hear you Fold users out there. You're whining, you're complaining, your phone folds in half. And the Fold is a great phone, but it is not a complete package like this. All you got to do is go on the Fold Reddit forum to see how many people's screens are cracking and Samsung's not fixing them. It's a whole really big disaster. And I know you Pixel pushers out there are cracking your knuckles ready to enter the fray of the keyboard wars. But hear me out. There are some things I think are really important to talk about here with this phone. The screen on the S22 Ultra, put simply, is the best screen I've ever seen on a smartphone. It's bright, sharp, colors pop without being like gaudy. Samsung used to have that overly gaudy kind of phone thing going on, but now it's just like so. I don't know how. They make the panel for this phone, they make the panel for the iPhone. This thing is just sharper and more intense than the iPhone screen ever is. Now, I know they're going for two different kinds of looks, but when you see this screen, it just zaps you in the eyeballs. And even after 3 weeks of using it, I'm still having that same experience. Now, this year, they brought back the curved edges, and I was a little leery of that because I've had false touches with the screen, and I know there's good lock and all this other stuff that you can do, but I figure you should be able to hold a phone without accidentally making it do something if you're paying this kind of money for a phone. But I have not had any false touches with this phone since I've used it. Sometimes the S Pen will fall off the edge when I'm trying to smart select something or something like that. But the screen is fantastic. 120 hertz variable refresh rate, resolution up to 1440p. The phone, though, it comes in 1080p. It comes set to 1080p. Oh my God, 1080p. But you can select that 1440p if you want to. You take a hit with the battery life, which is something we need to talk about later on. But 1440p is there. This is the best looking screen I've seen in 1080p, the best looking screen I've ever seen. Great screen is nothing without a decent interface to use while interacting with said screen. And Samsung has had a checkered past with operating system user interfaces. There were the days of TouchWiz. They're thankfully gone. One of the huge issues I've had with Android over the years is that it had to be malleable to be installed on so many different devices, which made it kind of milquetoasty and boring. It had no soul. The phone manufacturer would then go crazy manufacturing their own UI over top of Android, and that's where the problems came in. Samsung, guilty of this for years. It's been a long time, and I think that now Android and the user interfaces that the companies use have grown up a little bit. When Samsung introduced One UI a few years back, they finally started to design a UI that an adult would want to use. And what I like about One UI 4 or 4.1 or wherever we are at this point is that it still has a lot of the bells and whistles that Samsung came up with back in the day, but they have receded to where you can use them. They're right there at your fingertips, but they don't sort of jump out and get in your way as they did before. I mean, I'm thinking kind of the edge panel that has always existed, and it's still just right there, but I haven't accidentally triggered it in the whole time I've been using this phone. I like that Samsung has kept some of those Samsung-specific features here in One UI, but they're not in a place where I can't use the phone without, tripping over them as I do it. In fact, that might be the greatest accomplishment of the S22 Ultra. Super powerful, still over-engineered in its own way, the way that Samsung does, but Samsung has refined it to the point where it's easy to use, almost like, dare I say it, an iPhone. You could use it in an iPhone-like way if you wanted to. Simple stuff right out there in front of you, at your fingertips, but under the hood, the beast remains. Tip of the hat to you, Samsung. Now, camera. Let's talk about that. I can't do a review of a phone without talking about the camera. And all I can really say is that I'm impressed with this camera. I don't do a lot with I'm not like a camera aficionado. I don't take trips to take pictures of things. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. And I know that there are some folks who are not happy with the fact that Samsung still has shutter lag when taking pictures. But to me, I've found it not really all that annoying. I've gotten used to it. So now I just sort of see it as a way the Samsung photo app works. I'm impressed with the camera. I'm also impressed with the video, which has not always been the case with Android phones. And overall, I really haven't done anything with the camera, photo, or video-wise that hasn't come out in a usable manner, which was not always the case with Samsung phones in the past. I like the camera in the S21 Ultra, and the S22 Ultra is an improvement over that, so I can't ask for any more, really. The selfie camera is particularly impressive in here. Both videos and photos are super sharp, so if you're a content creator and you want to be able to see yourself, the selfie camera is the real deal. It is very, very good. And one thing that I've noticed is it gives a more realistic presentation than the iPhone selfie camera does. Something has happened with iPhone selfie cameras over the past few years where everything comes out looking soft and pink. Sorry. It just, the iPhone pictures aren't all that great from the selfie cam. This is sharp. The portrait mode is really good. There's a lot of really great stuff in there. Max and Vadim from Max Tech do an incredible job of breaking down this, comparing it to the iPhone, comparing it to the S21 Ultra, to the Galaxy Note 20. You should go watch their videos about the camera. They're going to do you a whole lot better than I am when it comes to the camera stuff. So up to this point, you're probably thinking, hey, this sounds like Jason really likes this phone. It's like the perfect phone, Jason is saying. And honestly, it really is pretty darn close. I mean, that's the one good thing about phones getting boring, is that they get better by little just tweaks here and there, to the point where there's almost nothing to complain about. But I will say this. After 3 weeks of using this phone, the battery life still not that great. It's better than it was when the first few days that I had it. As I said in my 72-hour video, it was really kind of shockingly bad. But now I get to the end of the day and I'll have like 30, maybe 40% of the battery left, and it'll drain really quickly from there. And that's just not good enough for a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. And I have, adaptive battery, blah, 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 and optimization and all that kind of stuff selected in the battery menu. It has gotten better. And I guess if your goal is to get an all-day battery life, then you're going to get it out of this. However, when you get nearly a 2-day battery life out of the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and even like the 13 Pro and the 13 are almost 2-day battery life phones at this point, I think that Samsung needs to do better with that. So now that I've mentioned that company that so many Samsung fans have some kind of really weird complex over. I mean, let's just a quick aside. Why is it that even if I don't mention Apple in a video about a Samsung device, most of the comments are about how Apple sucks? Back to the review. Let's just get right down to it. My ultimate conclusion about the Galaxy S22 Ultra after living with it for these 3 weeks. I love it. I really do. It's probably the best, most polished, most useful, most feature-packed phone Samsung has ever put out. Honestly, it might be all of those things for Android, period. The same could be said for the S21 Ultra last year. It was my favorite Android phone of last year. But this, with a real S Pen, instead of like the sort of the fake S Pen that didn't do all the S Pen things, this with a real S Pen, the camera refinements, this beautiful design that we got going on here, still got this really sexy black without, and a much better camera array than they had on the S21 Ultra. The fit and finish is just absolutely perfect. There's no logos anywhere that are sort of messing up the view of this thing. To me, this is the pinnacle of Android phones at this moment. And yes, aside from the name, it is everything that I always loved about the Galaxy Note series. And the Galaxy Note series has always been my favorite Android series of all. I don't like losing the Note line, but I guess as long as we still get the phone, a Note by any other name is still a Note. You tell me what you think down in the comments below. Ask me questions if you have any other questions. I have been really enjoying my time with this phone. Am I going to keep it? Is it going to become my phone that I'm going to use forever? I like this phone better than the iPhone. I'm just going to say that. I like this phone better than the iPhone in a lot of different ways. But ultimately, I can't make it my daily driver because the iPhone is so connected to everything else that I do. I use Macs. I have Apple TV. I have all of this different stuff. I have all of the AirPods. I have everything like that. And they all connect so easily together. The ability to have my texts come to my computer or to my iPad or to my phone, and to get phone calls at some of those different places. The ability to run my Apple TV as using the iPhone as a remote. Those are all just creature comforts that Samsung doesn't offer because it doesn't have that same kind of ecosystem. And I know everybody's like ecosystem, da, 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 da. I know. But as much as I love this phone, Apple's kind of got me in their clutches, and this would be the odd thing out if I were to use this as my everyday phone. Now I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to enjoy it. It's now better than the iPhone in many ways, and equal to the iPhone in many ways that it wasn't before. Samsung has finally grown up. Android has grown up. This phone has all the fit, finish, and polish that it needs to have to be my everyday phone. But anyway, thanks so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. Once again, my name is Jason, sometimes known as the JTL. This has been my review 3 weeks later. Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. Until the next time, I'm out.